Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Pada Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankarupena Machittam Panki Kritama Bhudhyaya Kinkariyasya Samaya Shankaracharya Mashraye Prahlada Varado Devo Yo Nrisimhah Paro Harihi नृसिंहोपासकं नित्यं तं नृसिंहगुरुं भजे श्री सच्चिदानंद शिवाभिनव्य नृसिंह भारत्यभिधान यतीन्द्रान् विद्यानिधीन् मन्त्रनिधीन् सदात्मनिष्ठान् भजे मानवशम्भुरूपान् सदात्मध्याननिरतं वृषगेभ्यः पराङ्मुखं नौमि शास्त्रेषु निष्णातं चन्द्रशेखरभारतीं विवेकिनं महाप्रज्ञं धैर्यौदार्यक्षमानिधिं सदाभिनवपूर्वं तं विद्यातीर्थगुरुं भजे भारतीकरुणापात्रं भारतीपदभूषणं भारतीपदमारूढं भारतीतीर्थमाश्रये विद्याविनयसम्पन्नं वीतरागं विवेकिनं वन्दे वेदान्ततत्त्वज्ञं विदुशेखरभारतीम्. It gives me great pleasure that on this auspicious occasion of Shankara Jayanti, we are talking about a Prakarana Grantha authored by the great Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada himself, who is none other than an avatar of Shiva, who Parameshwara, who came to this earth for the purpose of re-establishing the Upanishadic way of life, the Upanishadic truth of Advaita as the Paramatatparya of the Upanishads and as the sole means to know the self through which one attains moksha. So, as we all know, Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada wrote a large number of works, both of a religious devotional nature and of a philosophical nature. And the religious works comprised various verses on the deities of the Sanatana Dharma pantheon. He is also known as the Shadda Darshana Sthapanacharya. So, according to Advaita, Ishvara takes the form of various deities in order to bless the jivas. Ultimately, whether it is Shiva or Bhagavati Parvati or Mahavishnu or Surya or Ganapati or Skanda, all of them are manifestations of that one divine Ishvara. The forms may be many, but the reality, the tattva behind those forms, the chaitanya behind those forms is one. And so he has composed various works like the Saundarya Lahari, which talk about the glory of the Divine Mother. But he's also composed various philosophical works which bring out the true meaning of the Upanishads. The foundational basis of Sanatana Dharma is the Prasthanatraya. Of Vedanta is Prasthanatraya. The foundational basis of Sanatana Dharma itself is the Veda, but for Vedanta it is the Prasthanatraya. Being the Shruti Prasthana, the Upanishads, the Smriti Prasthana, Bhagavad Gita, and the Nyaya Prasthana being the Brahma Sutra. Now, the Brahma Sutra was authored by Bhagavan Badarayana Vyasacharya, and the purpose of the Brahma Sutra is to provide the rules and the techniques with which one can do the interpretation of the Upanishads to understand what the meaning is being conveyed. Because without those rules, without a basic premise upon which how to interpret, understanding of the Upanishads is very difficult. The Mula Pramana is the Shruti itself, the Upanishads. And the Smriti, which is essentially the Bhagavad Gita, is the outpourings of Ishvara in the form of Bhagavan Sri Krishna to Arjuna in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. But even that, as Shankara Bhagavatpada says, Bhagavan is using Arjuna as a nimittam, as a means with which to convey the Upanishadic truths in a manner which is more comprehensible. So ultimately, the basis for the Smriti also is the Upanishads, and the basis for the Brahma Sutra also is the Upanishads, because each sutra, there are 555 sutras, each sutra comprises one particular Vishaya Vakya coming from the Upanishads, and through that example of that Vishaya Vakya, Bhagavan Badarayana explains how Advaita is the true import, the true Tatparya, Parama Tatparya of the Upanishads. Because knowing that Advaitic truth is the sole means to moksha. Now, Shankaracharya has written commentaries on the 10 major Upanishads, the Dashopanishad. Kathak Ishakena Kathaprashna Mundamandukya Tittirihi Aitareyancha Chandogyam Brihadaranyakam Tatha. So those are the 10 Upanishads. Isha Upanishad, Kena Upanishad, Katha Upanishad, Prashna Upanishad, Isha Kena Katha Prashna, Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Taittiriya Upanishad, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Those are the 10 Upanishads upon which Bhagavan Sri Bhashyakara has written the commentaries. Now he has also written commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita also. So there's a Gita Bhashya authored by our Acharya, and of course his magnum opus, which everybody knows but very few people have the qualifications to study, is the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, which is an extraordinary work bringing out the true meaning of the highly cryptic sutras authored by Bhagavan Sri Badarayana Acharya. Now, apart from the Prasthanatraya Bhashya, Bhagavan Shankaracharya has also written various Prakarana Granthas, which take up certain topics of importance to Advaita Vedanta. Some of them are comprehensive summaries of the topics in the Vedanta. And the reason why he's written the Prakarana Grantha is to make the Prasthanatraya more accessible. For those not qualified enough to study the Prasthanatraya, the Prakarana Granthas are useful. And we will be looking at one such Prakarana Grantha right now, which is the Atma Bodha, for which we will not be talking about every verse. We have in detail covered every verse of the Atma Bodha in a series of talks which occurred over the course of about 3 or 4 years. And they are all available on YouTube and you can see them. Today's is going to be a summary of the Atma Bodha. Now, amongst the Prakarana Granthas are very important works such as the Upadesha Sahasri and the Viveka Chudamani, which are all like hundreds of verses. The Upadesha Sahasri, as the name says, comprises 1,000 verses. Viveka Chudamani, over 500 verses. The Atma Bodha is a relatively smaller work, comprising of 68 verses. But it is a comprehensive work, and therefore it is a good introductory text to Vedanta, because most of the important topics are covered in this work. And the other beauty of this is that there are lots of examples given from our daily life, which are used to illustrate the topic that is being conveyed by Acharya. So, if you look at some of these verses, so every verse starts off with identifying, every work of Vedanta will start off by looking at what are the qualifications of the student who has to take up this topic. And so, the first verse, Tapobih Kshina Papanam Shantanam Vitaraginam Mumukshunam Apekshoyam Atmabodho Vidhiyate, is essentially a verse which describes the Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, the fourfold qualifications. So, Tapovikshena Papanam is a pointer to Viveka, which is the discriminating faculty of the mind. Now, discrimination sounds like a word which is used in a negative connotation, because you're discriminating equals as unequals. So, if you differentiate between people, then that is bad discrimination. But there's also a good discrimination, which is identifying two things which appear to be the same but are really different, identifying them as different. And the ability to differentiate between that two things. What are those two things? Atma and Anatma. Satya and Mithya. Now, all of us, as jivas, are harboring under the wrong notion, the Upanishads say, of taking this body and mind to be the Atma. And Shankaracharya will explain how that is. And so Viveka is needed to distinguish the body and the mind from the Atma. So that is the discriminating intellect. Then Shantanam is a shorthand for the Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti. Shama, Dama, Uparama, the mental equanimity. Various qualities of the mind which are conducive to the study of Vedanta. Then Vitaraginam is the Vairagya, is a shorthand for Vairagya. Vitaraginam means those who have conquered their ragadveshas are not overly attached to worldly pleasures. They are not attached to divine pleasures also. So it is both Ihamutra, Artha Phala Bhoga Viraga. The Vairagya, Viraga means the absence of raga, attachment to what? Ihaphala and Amutra Phala. So the pleasures that you get in this world, but also the pleasures that you get in Svargaloka, etc. And then the fourth qualification is mumukshutvam, or a intense desire for liberation. So Shankaracharya is referring to that by the word mumukshunam in this verse. So all four qualifications are required for the study of Vedanta, and that's why it says mumukshu tapobhikshena papanam shantanam vitaraganam mumukshunam apekshoyam. These are all apekshitam. They are all required for the study of this text called Atma Bodha, and I am enjoining this text for such people. He's saying, Mumukshunam apekshoyam Atma Bodha vidhiyate. I am teaching this text with those people in mind. Hopefully all of us have attained those qualifications. And then comes a very important concept in Vedanta, which is that jnana or knowledge is the only means to moksha. So he says, bodhonyas sadhanebhyoho sadhanebhyo hi sakshat moksheka sadhanam pakastya varnivadgyanam vina mokshona siddhyati. He says, jnana or knowledge is the only means to moksha. For that bodha, for knowledge, apart from knowledge, there is no other means for moksha. It is the sakshat moksheka sadhanam. And he gives an example, just like the heat or fire is the direct means for cooking, like that, knowledge is the direct means for moksha. So why does he say knowledge is the direct means for moksha? He explains in the next verse, avirodhitaya karma navidyam vinivartaget vidya vidyam nihantyeva tejas timira sanghavat. So he says, you cannot have karma, etc. So there used to be like these various theories like Purva Mimamsa, etc., which are highly ritualistic in nature. And what Shankaracharya is saying in this verse is, all those rituals are important for the fourfold qualifications that have been highlighted in the first verse, sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, but their job ends there. So if those rituals, the pujas, the homa, japa, all of upasana, all of that is important. But it is not the means to moksha, it is the means to sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Because all of them operate in the realm of ignorance. So long they necessarily have to operate in a world of duality, because every puja is of a person performing the puja to a deity. So there is automatically a duality. There is a duality of the upasya and the upasaka. Sorry, the upasaka and the upasya. Yeah. So I, the upasaka, I am worshipping an upasya devata, and the action I am performing is upasana. So there is automatically this triumvirate. This triad exists. And so long as this triad exists, that is not the means for moksha. And we will see what is this moksha. What is the nature of moksha? Shankaracharya will explain. He says, now, because knowledge, because rituals are operating in this realm of the triad, they cannot be the means to moksha. They are avirodha to the cause of samsara. So he says, avirodhataya karma na avidyam vinivartaget. Karma is avirodha to avidya. And avidya is the cause for samsara. So therefore, if moksha is the absence of samsara, the end of samsara, then the means to moksha must necessarily require the end of ajnana, but karma is not in opposition to ajnana, and therefore karma cannot give moksha. Karma cannot lead to moksha because karma is not in opposition to ignorance. And what is in opposition to ignorance? Bodha, Atma Bodha. So it's only knowledge which is in opposition to ignorance. Now, Shankaracharya gives us an example or gives us a quick summary of what is the cause of samsara. He says, Parichinna iva ajnana tan nashe sati kevalah swayam prakashate hi atma megha payem shumaniva. So he says, this atma is parichinna iva. It is as though it is limited. And what is the reason for that? Ajnana, because of ignorance. And tannashe, when that ajnana is destroyed, Atma sati kevalaha. Atma automatically exists by itself without ignorance. It has no dependence on anything else. It independently exists. It alone exists. Now, Atma in Vedanta is the only existent reality. Everything, this world, this jivatva, ishvaratva, everything is a product of that ignorance, presupposes that ignorance. Now, and because of this ajnana, the all pervading Paramatma takes himself to be the Jivatma, Parichinna Iva. And when that ignorance is destroyed, Atma Swayam Prakashate. Atma shines forth by itself, just like the sun, which has been temporarily obscured by clouds. When the clouds are removed, the sun shines forth independently, shines forth without requiring anything else. All that is required is the removal of knowledge, removal of ignorance, which happens by knowledge. And so that's why it says, Megha payem shumaniva atma swayam prakashate. Now we will skip a few verses. We'll go to like the verse number 6. Samsaraha swapnatulyo hi ragadveshadi sankulaha swakale satyavadbhati prabodhe sati asad bhavet. And then tavat satyam jagadbhati shuktika rajatam yatha yavanna jnayate brahma sarvadhisthana advayam. In these two verses, Shankaracharya is talking about for how long samsara persists. Yes, first in the samsara swapnatulyo he compares samsara to dream. He says samsara is like a dream and it is intermingled with raga and dvesha, and for in the dream, just like everything seen in a dream appears to be real. Now, when you're dreaming things, we don't know that it's a dream. We think it is like real. In the dream, nobody thinks that this is a dream. So some people may, but that's an exception. In general, swakale swatyavadbhati in the dream, swapne. And so long as this samsara, which is like a dream, so long as you think it is real, everything will appear real. And when you wake up, just like a dream, you think, oh, this has been a dream all along. Just like when you wake up to knowledge, you realize that this entire samsara, this entire jagat is simply an appearance that I have seen like a dream. And how long does this dream last? Tavat satyam jagadbhati shuktika rajatam yatha yavanna jnayate brahma sarvadhisthana advayam. For so long as one does not realize the true nature of reality, which is that the only existent thing is Sarvadhisthana Brahma, the supreme substratum of everything, Brahma, Advayam, which is non-dual. For so long you don't know this, that Brahman is the only reality, you will think that whatever you see is real. Just like in a dream. So long as you haven't woken up, you will think that everything in a dream is real. Similarly, so long as you don't wake up to the knowledge that all that exists is Brahman, you continue to think that the samsara and the jagat is all satya. Where in fact, this jagat is simply a mithya, an appearance, a vivarta. Chaitanya vivarta. It is an appearance in Brahman. Now, Shankaracharya then talks about like what sorts of the differences that we see. We see an Ishvara, or we hear about an Ishvara from Shruti, and then of course we all experience Jivatva. So those are in verses 8, 9, 10, etc. Upadane khiladhare jaganti parameshware sargasthiti layanyanti buddhadani vavarani. So what is this world? The world is simply like a bubble in water, and that bubble in the water, in just like the bubbles appear, they disappear, etc. Similarly, this world appears and disappears in the upadana, in the material cause, which is what? Which is the adhara, the substratum is the parameshwara. Just like the world appears and disappears, just like bubbles appear and disappear in water, the world appears and disappears in Ishvara. So we talked about Ishvara, who is the material cause. Jagat abhinna nimittopadanam, the non-distinct material and efficient cause of this universe is Ishvara. So Shankaracharya has talked about Ishvara. Now he talks about the jivas. He says, Yathakasho rishikesho nanopadhigato vibhu tadbhedat bhinnavadbhati tannashe kevalo bhavet. Now somebody may have doubt, if consciousness is the only thing, how come we see so many jivas? How come we see so much multiplicity? Yes, it's all because of upadhis, the adjuncts. And what are the upadhis? Shankaracharya will talk about the next verse. The body-mind complex is the upadhis. Just like you have different rooms which divide up the space, similarly, you have Atma Chaitanya. The one Atma Chaitanya is as though divided into different jivas. Each jiva having being an independent conscious entity, we think. Just like walls divide space up, similarly, the minds divide the one indivisible consciousness into different jivas. And the differences in the jivas are not because of the consciousness being different. It's not like within one particular upadhi, the jiva is different, and another particular upadhi, the jiva is different. No, the consciousness is still the same. What is the differences that we perceive? I am like this, I am so and so, she is so and so, they are so and so, etc. Those differences, like jati, varna, ashrama, etc., are not differences in Chaitanya, they are differences in the upadhis. So it says, Nanopadhi vashadeva jati varnashramadaya atmani aropitastoye rasavarnadi vedavate. Just like different chemicals mixed in water, different flavors mixed in water will give rise to different flavors. So if I mix lemon extract into one, you will think that is lemon juice. If you mix apple extract into one water, you will think it's apple juice. Just like, we have different squash. We have different fruit squash, we mix into different things and it becomes different. Just like that, the distinctions of jati, varna, ashrama, etc. are not because of differences in the consciousness. The consciousness is still the same. What is different is the body. So the one particular individual body can be can be like a child. Another one can be a grown up. Something can be a boy. Something can be a girl. In different walks of life. Someone can be an old man. Someone can be a police officer. Somebody can be a brahmana. Somebody can be can work as a politician. All of those distinctions exist. But are they distinctions in consciousness? No, they're simply distinctions in the body. Now, just because you have distinctions in the body, the consciousness is not distinct. It is one indivisible consciousness. You should think of it like different walls dividing the one indivisible space into different rooms, like that. Now, Shankaracharya in the next three verses, verses 12 to 14, will talk about the different bodies. So we'll cover all the three bodies. So there are three bodies: the physical body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Shankaracharya will talk about this. Panchikrita mahabhuta sambhavam karma samchitam shariram sukadukhanam bhogayatanam uchyate. So he's talking here about this sthula sharira. We'll come back to this. Then panchaprana manobuddhi dashendriya samanvitam apanchikrita bhutotham sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. So in this verse he's talking about the sukshma sarira. And then anadya vidya anirvacha karanopadhiruchyate upadhi tritayad anyam atmanam avadharayet. So this is the karana sharira, the causal body. So what is the sthula sharira? The sthula sharira is this physical body. So this physical body is what consists of panchikrita mahabhutam. So pancha mahabhuta being the space, akasha, then vayu, wind, then apaha, water, then Agni, which is fire, and then there is the Prithvi, which is earth. So these are the 5 elements. Vedantic cosmology, the entirety of the physical universe is these 5 different elements in different compositions. And here he talks about Panchikritam. So Panchikritam is a prakriya, is methodology adopted. So when creation was happened, all of these 5 elements came from Brahman. So Atmana Akasha Sambhutaha Akashad Vayu Vayor Agnehe Agnerapah Adhyaf Prithvi Prithivya Oshadaya Oshadibhyonnam. So from Atma came Akasha, from Akasha came Vayu, from Vayu Agnihi, from Agnerapah water, from Adhyaf Prithvi, from water came earth. So this is the order. But all of these came as subtle elements, meaning they are not physically visible, but they are subtle evolutions from the Atma. They are evolutions of Maya. The one Maya evolved into these 5 elements. And these 5 elements got together and they mixed up. And they've through a process known as Panchikaranam, wherein these physical elements became perceptible to the senses through this grossification. And this physical, everything that is visible, everything that is you can touch, taste, feel, see, all of that is a product here. All of that is a product of the Panchikarana process of the subtle elements. And this physical body is a product of those grossification process of Panchikarana of the 5 elements. Panchikrita Mahabhuta Sambhavam. And it's a karma sanchita. It is the result of all the karmas that have been performed in the previous birth give rise to one particular body. And then this is the Sukha-dukkhanam bhogayatanam. It is the receptacle or the means by which the jiva experiences karma phala of both sukha and dukkha, and it's the means by which one carries about their life and goes through various experiences. So that is the physical body, that is the one form of upadhi. Now the second form of upadhi is the subtle body, and they are the pancha prana, prana, pana, vyanodana, samana, udana. So these are the 5 prana vayus. Then the manobuddhi, then the pancha jnanendriya and the pancha karmendriya. The subtle body comprises of these: the senses, the mind, the intellect, and the the vital energy in the body. And the subtle body consists of these things, and it is these subtle body which controls the physical body. And then, so that is the second form of upadhi. And then the third upadhi, the subtlest upadhi, is the mayopadhi, which is anadi, beginningless. It is actually of the nature of avidya. It's a causal ignorance. This is anirvachya, meaning one cannot say it is real or unreal. It's different from the real. It is different from the unreal. So it is sadasat vilakshanam. It's anirvachyam. And it's called karanopadhi ruchyate. And then what is the Atma? Atma is different from these 3. Upadhi tritayadanyam atmanam iti avadharayet. Know the Atma to be different from these. Now, what is the problem? The fundamental problem in samsara is that panchakoshadi yogena tattanmaya ivasthitaha shuddhatma nilavastradi yogena sphatiko yatha. The Atma is mixed up with the Anatma, just like the Sphatika reflects the blueness of the cloth, Nilavastra, and appears to be blue. The Atma reflects the properties of these things and appears to actually be suffering or be colored by these attributes. And that is the fundamental problem. And so one takes on the problems of these upadhis as though they are problems of oneself because of ignorance. So the avidya, because of which these 3 upadhis are there, the avidya is also the cause for the adhyasa of taking the body's problems to be our problems, and the properties of the Atma to be as though the properties of the Anatma. So the Yushmad Asmat Pratyaya Gocharayoho, this is how the Adhyasa Bhashya starts. The problem is talked about here. And what is the solution? Solution, Shankaracharya says in this verse, next verse, he says, Vapustushadibihi koshair yuktam yukti avaghatataha atmanam antaram shuddham vivichat tandulam yatha. So one should discover the Atma just like one peels out the skin of the paddy to get to the rice grain. Similarly, one should peel out these three upadhis intellectually, separate the Atma from these three upadhis, and through that you can know the Atma. Now the question then comes is, if Atma is everywhere, why do I only see it within the confines of my body and not something else? So how about like non-living rocks, mountains, rivers, etc.? Atma is there also? So if that is the case, why do they appear to be non-living? So Shankaracharya answers this question. He says, Sada sarvagatopi atma na sarvatra avabhasate buddhau eva avabhaseta swachheshu pratibimbhavate. Just like reflections are only possible in certain places which are extremely polished. Swachheshu. So either it's a highly polished surface, like a varnished tabletop, or like water or highly polished mirrors, etc. Similarly, even though the Atma is everywhere, everything is capable of reflection. But reflection only is manifest only in certain surfaces. Similarly, Atma is everywhere, but that consciousness manifests only in those places where the Sukshma Sharira is there, where the intellect and the mind is present. It's only there where the manifestation of the Atma as a conscious entity is very clear. Everywhere it is clear as an existent entity. So as a Satsvarupa, everything appears to be existing. Whatever exists, we say, oh, this table exists, chair exists, etc. That existence is not the chair's table's existence, it's actually Atma. Atma's existence appears in the chair. And so we say the chair exists, but really it is not. Existence is different, chair is different. And if you take the chair out of existence, what remains? Only existence. The chair cannot exist. If you remove existence out of the chair cannot exist. So, whatever appears as existing, that existence is actually Atma. So, as the Satsvarupa it is manifest, but as the Chit Swarupa it is not manifest because that chair doesn't have the Sukshma Sharira to reflect the consciousness. Now, if Atma is everywhere, it cannot move, correct? It's all pervading. So, it should be stationary. So, why do I feel that it is only that I'm moving from place to place? That's a question. So Shankaracharya says, Vyaprateshu indriyeshu atma vyapari iva avivekinam drishyate abhreshu dhavatsu dhavanniva yatha shashi. So now when in a full moon night, when the moon there is like clouds at night time, and you observe the clouds are moving. And when the clouds are moving over the moon, it feels as though the moon itself is moving. But really it is not. The moon is stationary only. I mean, even the moon moves in like from a cosmological perspective, but from a visualization, Shankaracharya is saying, just like the stationary moon appears to be moving because of the movement of the clouds, similarly, because of the movements of the indriyas, Vyaprateshu indriyeshu Vyapari iva Atma avivekinam drishyate. So to the avivekis, those who haven't distinguished the Atma from the Anatma, they confuse the movement of the Indriya to be the movement of the Atma, just like one confuses the movement of the clouds to be the movement of the moon. Now, if consciousness is different from the mind and the body, why is it that the body and the mind appear to be living? You say the mind is conscious. Now, in Vedanta, actually, it flips and says, no, mind is not conscious. There's a separate principle called the consciousness principle, because of which the mind appears to be conscious. So that's what Shankaracharya says. Atma chaitanyam ashritya dehendriya manodhiya adhyaha swakriyarteshu vartante suryalokam yatha janaha. Just like people go about their daily businesses during the daytime with the help of sunlight. At night time, everybody is resting. They are not moving, etc. So all the movements and activities takes place only in Suryaloka during with the presence of the sun's light. Similarly, all the mind, senses, intellect, etc., all of it appears to act. But the real Chaitanya, they don't have the Chaitanya themselves. That Chaitanya is borrowed from the Atma Chaitanya. So it is Atma Chaitanyam ashritya. By being dependent on the Atma Chaitanyam, Dehendriya Manodhyaha Swakriyartheshu Vartante. They act in their respective activities, they perform their respective functions because of Atma Chaitanya. Really speaking, the mind and the body are not conscious, they are inert only. And then Shankaracharya says, people don't know this. So they superimpose consciousness onto the mind and saying the mind is consciousness. And now, worse, they superimpose the properties of the mind onto the consciousness. This is the Atma Anatma Adhyasa, Anyonya Adhyasa. Anyonyasmin, Anyonyatmakadam, Anyonya Dharmamscha Adhyasya. Shankaracharya says in the Adhyasa Bhashya, the properties of the mind are superimposed onto the Atma, which is a big fundamental problem. Dehendriya gunan karmani amale satchidatmani adhyasyanti avivekena gagane nilatadivate. Just like one superimposes color onto the sky is blue, we say, gagane nilatadivate. Similarly, the in the amala, in the absolutely pure consciousness, Satchidatma, people superimpose avivekena adhyasyanti, because of the lack of discrimination, what the attributes and the properties of the deha, indriya, guna, etc. Now, and then they say ajnanan manasopadehe kartruttvadini cha atmani kalpante ambugate chandre charanadi yathambhasaha. So the previous verse there, Shankaracharya said, they superimpose the Atma, the Anatma onto the Atma. Now he is talking about the properties of the Anatma are being superimposed. So what are the properties of the Anatma? Kartatvadi, Bhoktrtvadi, etc. Doership, experiencership, etc. are properties of the Anatma. They are all superimposed on the Atma because of ignorance. And just like the movement of water, so if there's a reflection of the moon on the water and the water moves, so we think that the moon itself is moving. No, actually it's the water only moving. So the properties of the water, of movement, etc. are superimposed onto the reflection onto the original moon. Similarly, the properties of the mind such as doership, etc., kartritvadi, are superimposed onto the Atma. Similarly, other properties, he talks about kartritvadi in this verse. In the next verse, ragecha sukhadukhadi buddhau satyam pravartate sushoptau nasti tan nashe tasmat buddhestu natmanaha. In this verse, he says raga, dvesha, ahankara, all of that are properties of the mind. And when the mind is active, they are present. And when the mind has gone to sleep, in deep sleep, they are not present. That itself tells you that they are not properties of the Atma, they are properties of the Upadhi. So when the Upadhi is active, they are active, means they are not properties of the Atma. So what is the nature of Atma then? Prakashaha arkasya toyasya shaityam agner yatha ushnata swabhavaha satchidananda nirmalatatmanaha. So in this verse, Shankaracharya is saying, just like the nature of the sun is of light, nature of water is coolness, nature of fire is heat, the nature of Atma is Satchidatma, is existence, consciousness, bliss, Nitya, the eternity, and the, what's the other word thing? Nirmalata is this purity. The absolute unaffectedness, if that's the word like that, of any of the impurities of the Anatma, that Nirmalata exists in the Atma. Now he says how deep this ignorance has gone is even the notion of I know, the knowership also, pramatritvam, is also because of ignorance only. Says Atmanaha Satchidamshascha Buddher Vrittiritidvayam Samyojyacha Avivekena Janamiti Pravartate. The activities such as Janami, I know, are because of two things. What are the two things? Atmanaha Satchidamshascha. The existence and the consciousness aspects of the Atma, Buddher Vritti, are mixed up, Samyojya, with Buddher Vritti, the thought patterns of the intellect. And by mixing these two together, I and know, they mix these two, put these two together, Samyojya, and they combine this and say, I know. So, Pramatritvam, is because of a combination of the Atma and the Anatma, the Chidachid Granthi, the ego, which is the combination of the Atma and the Anatma, the mixture of the Atma and the Anatma is the basis for Pramatritvam. And so then Shankaracharya says, but really speaking, Atmano Vikriya Nasti Buddher Bodhona Jatviti Jivaha Sarvamalam Gyatma Gyata Drishteti Muhyati. Now the Atma cannot undergo change. The intellect certainly cannot. Jatu, intellect certainly cannot know. But the Jiva deludedly thinks that the two alone are enough for knowledge and considers himself to be the knower and the seer. And so, what is the cause of fear? Rajju sarpavad atmanam jivam gyatpa bhayam vahet naham jivaha paramatmeti gyatam chet nirbhayo bhavet. Now, if you know that I am not a jiva but a paramatma, then I can be nirbhaya. Now, if I think that I am a jiva, then I'll always be subject to fear. Dvatiya bhayam bhavati. Udaram antaram kurute athatasya bhayam bhavati. If you make even one tiny bit of difference with Brahma, then there will be fear. So long as you consider yourself to be I am a small jiva, etc., then the fearfulness and fear will be a part of your life. So long as you think you're jiva. So and he gives an example like a Rajju Sarpa, like a rope snake. If you mistake the rope to be the snake, then that will be a cause of fear. If you mistake Atma to be a jiva, then that will be a cause of fear. So, Atmava bhasayati eko buddhyadini indriyanyapi deepo ghatativat swatma jadaistairna avabhasyate. So like in the case of the lamp and the pots, etc., it is the self alone that illuminates the intellect and the sense, but the self is not illuminated by anything. So the Atma is sarvabhasaka. It illuminates everything, but there is nothing else to illuminate the Atma. Then if there is nothing else to illuminate the Atma, how can you know the Atma? So Shankaracharya answers, Swabodhe nanyabodhecha bodharupatayatmata atmanaha na deepasya anyadeepecha yatha swatma prakashane. See, if you have a lamp, that lamp can illuminate everything else. But if you have to see the lamp, do you need another lamp to illuminate this one? No. Because the lamp is automatically self-illuminating. Similarly, you need the Atma to know everything. But to know the Atma, there's nothing else needed. Because the Atma, by its mere presence, will automatically shine and will reveal itself. It's self-revelating. So how can you make, so why is it that I feel that I don't know the Atma then? So Shankaracharya says, Nishidya nikilopadhin neti neti iti vakyataha vidyad aikyam mahavakyir jivatma paramatmanoho. So by the systematic negation of all the upadhis, so the Viveka Shankaracharya is explaining here how to separate the upadhis from the Atma by saying neti neti. Everything, this body is not me, this mind is not me, this intellect is not me, this ahankara is not me, because it comes and goes. These three states are not me. This universe is not me. So you separate the Atma, and ultimately what remains? And there will be something that remains, because you can never negate the negator. When everything else is negated, what remains is the Atma, and that Atma, through the Mahavakya, you know, is nothing other than the Paramatma. The Atma Chaitanyam, consciousness, am nothing but Parabrahma himself. And Parabrahma is not some Ishvara with Trishulam and the Damaru, etc., but pure consciousness. So the consciousness here is the consciousness there. It is the one consciousness everywhere. Through the Mahavakya, know that. So this is the central teaching of the Atma Bodha. Through the Mahavakya, through the process of Neti Neti, you discover the inner self and equate the inner self to the Paramatma. So, how do you refute the Upadhi? Avidyakam shariradi drishyam budbudavaksharam etad vilakshanam vidyad aham brahmeti nirbalam. This is a central portion of the Atma Bodha we are talking about. It says, Now, all these bodies, etc., are avidyaka, are products of ignorance. Okay, you know them to be mithya. So this neti neti is not saying that merely I am not this. You're saying that this thing doesn't exist at all. It is through me, the consciousness, that this thing appears to exist. If I withdraw myself from them, none of these have existence, fundamental existence. When I say I don't mean the jiva, I don't mean the ego, I don't mean the entity which is within this particular physical body. No, the consciousness I'm talking about. That consciousness is the one that lends Sat and Chit to this physical body. And this physical body, really speaking, is mithya, has no existence of its own. This mind has no existence of its own. This buddhi has no existence of its own. It has no consciousness of its own. It is not a conscious entity. The consciousness is being supplied by me, the Atma. So, avidyakam shariradi drishyam, everything which is appearing, this universe, including the family, the house, the job, the everything that appears, everything drishya is mithya, and through that mithyatva nishchaya, you refute all of that. Know that whatever is this aham is different from all these. It is the witness to all of these things. And once you know that, you say that aham is the pure Brahma. Aham brahmeti nirmalam iti vidyat. Know this. So, this is the central teaching. Through this, Shankaracharya has conveyed what is Aham Brahmasmi, how to do understand Aham Brahmasmi. It is not the equation of a limited jiva with the the omnipotent, omniscient Ishvara. No, that is not Jiva Brahma Aikya we are talking about. We are not equating a jiva with the Ishvara. We are equating the Chaitanya which enlivens the jiva upadhi with the Chaitanya which enlivens the Ishvara Upadhi. And it is only that is being equated. The Upadhis themselves do not have any reality of their own, therefore they are being rejected. So, this is the basis for Shravana and Manana. And then, excuse me, then over the next 6 verses, Shankaracharya conveys the same message through Nididhyasana. So instead of talking about the Atma as a third person, he starts using it as a first person, as an Aham. So you're abiding in that knowledge. Dehanyatvad me janma jara karshya layadayah shabdyadi vishayehi sango nirindriyataya nacha amanastvat name dukkha ragadvesha bhayadayah aprano hi amana shubhraha ityadi shruti shasanat nirguno nishkriyo nityo nirvikalpo niranjanah nirvikaro nirakaro nityamuktos nirmalah. All of these are essentially repeating the same teaching, but they're all saying, I am nirguna, I am nishkriya, I am free from the mind, there are no ragadveshas in me, I am different from the deha anyatvat. Therefore, none of the products, so the first verse was saying none of the properties of the body, like janma, jara, karshya, like death, birth, old age, disease, none of them affect me. I have no association with the Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha of the senses also. I am Nirguna, and so because I am completely different from these. I am completely different from the mind. I'm completely different from the properties of the mind. I'm completely different from prana. I'm completely pure. I'm attributeless. I'm unmoving. Then aham akashavat sarvam bahirantargatochyutah sada sarva samasiddho nisango nirmalocharah nitya shuddha vimuktaika aikam akhandanandam advayam satyam jnanam anantam yatparam brahmahameva tat evam nirantarabhyasta brahmayavahamasmi iti vasana harati avidya vikshepan roganiva rasayanam. So you have to ceaselessly practice this. What have you practiced? I am all pervading like space. I am like both inside and out. I have never fallen into samsara. So samsara is itself mithya. There is no real samsara to the Atma. It is only an appearance because of ignorance. I am nitya shuddha. I am eternally pure. I am eternally free. By thus constantly practicing this, through this Brahmaivaham Asmi Vasana, one develops the mental vritti, the tendency of understanding the Atma to be Brahma and giving up the erroneous notion of Jivatvam. And then Shankaracharya says, how do you do this Nididhyasana? He says, like the sixth chapter of the Gita, he says, Vivikta Desha Asinaha Virago Vijitendriyaha Bhavayed Ekamatmanam Tam Anantam Ananyadhihi. So you find a clean place, free from attachment, you overcome the senses, you contemplate in that space, and you let your mind go through these thought patterns. And if you do that, you can slowly develop the Brahma Vasana and overcome the Jiva Vasana. And so, what should be the thoughts during the Dhyasana? Atmani eva akhilam drishyam pravilapya dhyasudhihi bhavaye dekamaatmanam nirmalakashavat sada रूप वर्णादिकं सर्वं विहाय परमार्थवित् परिपूर्ण चिदानंद स्वरूपेण अवतिष्ठते ज्ञात्र ज्ञान ज्ञेय भेदः परे आत्मनि विद्यते परे नात्मनि विद्यते चिदानंद ऐकरूपत्वात् दीप्यते स्वयमेव तत्. So all these differences such as knower, knowledge, known, etc. don't really exist in the Atma. All the forms and names don't really exist in the Atma. All the objects of the Atma are mithya, drishya, and thus by subsuming all of this, I am all this, none of this actually exists, I am all this, by that process of Bodha, one realizes that Atma is the only existing reality. And through that, one attains jnana, and that jnana gives rise to moksha. So what is jnana phala? The next few verses talks about that. So, evam atmarano dhyana evam atmarano dhyanamatane satatam krite udita avagata jwala sarva ajnana indanam dahet. So, by this process, this mental churning of Shravana, Marana, Nididhyasana, the Avagati Jwala rises, the flame of knowledge rises, and that burns the fuel of Ajnana. And so the first phala of Jnana is Ajnana Nivritti. And then as a result of that, what happens? Arunaineva Bodhena Purvam Santamase Krite Tata Avirbhaveda Atma Swayameva Amshumaniva Atma Abhivyakti. So, when the pre-existing profound darkness, the sun tamas, is destroyed by the dawn of knowledge, Atma automatically shines itself like the sun at dawn. I'm sorry about this cough. Atma tu satatam praptaha api apraptavad avidyaya tannashe praptavad bhati swakantabharanam yatha. Just like a person who has lost the chain that they're wearing in the neck, they think he has lost, but in reality it's in the neck only. He looks everywhere. Similarly, Atma is ever attained, but one thinks that one has lost it. And so this whole process is like the search of somebody who is looking for a chain when he is wearing that chain around his neck. So that's what he says. Satatam praptaha Atma. Even though it is that the case, apraptavat avidyaya, it appears as though it is aprapta, unattained. And when avidya is destroyed, then again one thinks, now I have attained Atma again. So, Atma Prapti is the third phala. Removal of Jivatva is the next phala. Sthanu Purushavad Bhrantya Krita Brahmani Jivata Jivasya Tattvike Rupe Tasmin Drishte Nivartate. So, Jivatva goes away. Then, Ahankara Mamakara goes away. He says, Tattva Swarupanubhavat Utpannam Jnanamanjasa Aham Mameti Cha Jnanam Badhate Digbhramativate. So, just like Digbhrama, the confusion about directions goes away once you know the directions. Similarly, aham, mama, etc., which are digbhrama, which confuse something else to be the Atma, something else to be the possessions of the Atma, they are also destroyed when the Jnana destroys the Ajnana. So once Ahankara Mamakara go, all notions of duality also go. Samyak Vijnanavan Yogi Swatmani Eva Akhilam Jagate Ekam cha Sarvam Atmana Mikshate Jnana Chakshusha. Through the eye of knowledge, he subsumes everything into himself. He says, Ahameva Edagam Sarvam, I am all this. And so he sees the Atma as the Eka, as the one thing. He also sees Atma as the Sarva, as the everything. It is the one Atma which is everything. So, and therefore all notions of duality are removed. And then he can live as a Jivan Mukta. Tirtva Moharnavam Hatva Ragadveshadi Rakshasan Yogi Shanti Samayuktaha Atma Ramo Virajate. The Atma Rama, the one who delights in himself, shines forth like a Jivan Mukta, as a Jivan Mukta, by overcoming this massive ocean of samsara through the process of jnana. And then this Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, their states are briefly talked about. Bahya Anitya Sukhasaktim Hitva Atma Sukha Nirvritaha Ghatastha Deepavat Swastham Swantareva Prakashate Upadisthopi Tadharmehi Alipto Vyomavat Munihi Sarvavit Mudavat Tishthet Asakto Vayuvaccharet. So this Jivan Mukta, what he does is, he renounces all these external sources of happiness as Anitya. All the attachments with them, the asakti with them, he renounces. He only rejoices in the Atma Sukha. And like a lamp hidden within a pot, he carries about his daily existence, but in reality, he has negated the entirety of this universe, and it holds no meaning for him further. And even though he is within the Upadhi, Upadhistopi tad dharmaihi aliptaha, is untouched, untainted by those properties of the body. He is like the Vyoma, like space. And so the Sarvavit Mudhavat Tishthet, even though he knows everything, he is the omniscient Paramatma, because Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati, the knower of Brahman is Brahman himself. But he acts as though he knows nothing. Sarvavit Mudhavat Tishthet. So he acts as if he doesn't know anything. And Asaktaha Vayuvaccharet. He travels wherever he wants, like the wind, but he has no attachment to his surroundings. And at the end of Prarabdha, Thacha Jivan Mukta attains Videha Kaivalya, Upadhi Vilayad Vishnau Nirvishesham Vishet Munihi, Jale Jalam Viyat Vyomni, Tejasi Vayatha. So he says, just like water ends up with water, fire ends up with fire, earth with earth, when the body of the Jivan Mukta drops, all of those upadhis merge with the elements, and he is completely free even from the appearance of the association with upadhi. So for the Jivan Mukta, he has no association with the body, he merely appears to be within the body. Once Videha Mukti happens, even that appearance of the association goes away. And then Shankaracharya in the last few verses, so by this we covered 53 verses in about 58 minutes or so. And so in the next few verses, Shankaracharya does a stuti of jnana, and he says there's nothing greater than this. Yallabhad naparo labha yat sukhad naparam sukham. There is no greater happiness. Yad drishtva naparam drishyam. There is, once you see this, nothing else to be seen. Yad bhutva na punarbhavaha. There is no birth after this. Yajñatva naparam gyayam. There is nothing else to be known. And atadvyavritya rupena vedante lakshyate advayam. The Vedantic sentences also cannot really tell you about Brahman. They can only point you to Brahman. You have to pick up that pointer and then understand. So it's an indirect Lakshana. It is not a direct Shakti. It's not directly telling you about Brahman, it's indirectly telling you about Brahman. And how does it say? Indirectly, Atadvyavarti Rupena. By Neti Neti, it says what it is not. And by doing that, and by us following that Atadvyavarti process, we automatically understand what the Atma is. And it says everything else is whatever happiness that exists in the world is simply Brahmananda only. Akhandananda Rupasya Tasya Ananda Lavashritaha Brahmadhyaha Taratamyena Bhavanti Anandinoho Akhilaha. So, from Lord Hiranyagarbha, Brahmaji, Chaturmukha Brahma himself, all the way down to everybody else, to the Jiva, to the Pashu Pakshi, to worms, to plants, to seeds, everything. Whatever happiness that any of these beings enjoy is just a tiny fraction of that Brahmananda. So, with that, I will just cover the last couple of verses. Hridakasha udito hyatma bodha bhanus tamo prahriti sarvavyapi sarvadhari bhati bhasayati akhilam. This self, which is shining in the heart, it shines as the wisdom of the heart, shines as the eye in the heart, is the destroyer of darkness. And it is not just present in the heart, it is all pervading, all supporting, sarvadharaha. It is self-evident. It is to know the Atma, nothing else is needed, because it is nobody has a doubt whether I am. So therefore, the Atma's presence, everyone knows that I exist, is self-evident. The notion of what is the self is mistaken for people, and so the purpose of Shastra is to remove that wrong notion of the self. And once the wrong notion is removed, automatically the self shines forth with nothing else. So, on this auspicious occasion of Shankara Jayanthi, I would like to thank Sringeri Guru Bandhavas for giving me the opportunity to think of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada's works and share what joy I got from the study of these works with the world. And for that, I am very grateful to them. I hope that everybody has a wonderful Shankara Jayanti and continues to celebrate the magnificent avatara of Adi Shankara Bhagavad Pada. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Sharada Sharadambhoja Vadana Vadanambuje Sarvada Sarvadasmakam Sannidhim Sannidhim Kriya. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.